Chapter 1, The Breathing Mountain. Feel the wind descending from the Atlas Mountains like an ancient sigh, carrying the scent of wild rosemary and sun-scorched earth. Hear the murmur of springs hidden in the rocks, not ordinary water, but tears that never dry. See the silhouette of Jebel Musa rising before the Atlantic Ocean, where the sea crashes against the stone as if begging forgiveness. This is not just a pile of rocks. It is Tinjis. In Berber cosmology, the ancestral spirituality of the Amazigh peoples, the free of North Africa, the earth is not a backdrop, but a living being. And no mountain speaks more loudly than the one the Greeks would call the Pillars of Hercules, but which the Berbers have always honored as Tinjis, the goddess who became rock to protect her people. She was not born from a distant sky, but from the very Tamard, the living earth, mother and identity, with a body of granite, a heart beating with the seasons, eyes like eagles, and hair like pine trees resistant to the desert wind. Tinjis does not govern, she preserves. She demands no sacrifices, but respect. Amazigh shepherds, crossing her slopes, leave bread, milk, or simply silence, knowing that whoever defies her suffers not lightning or plagues, but something deeper, oblivion. They lose their way, their memory, their very name. Her myth was not written on papyrus, but engraved on the rocks, in the valleys, and in the songs of grandmothers who lulled children to sleep with verses about the Lady of the Mountain who loved the sea. It was from this love, improbable, fierce, cosmic, that a hero would be born. But before that, came the encounter between Tinjis and Antaeus, son of the sea and the earth, like her. Upon seeing him, she did not see an invader, but a mirror. She accepted his love, and, with that, sealed her destiny. Because to love is always to create a path, and every path can be cut off. On the eve of this encounter, under a sky of intense stars, Tinjis felt a tremor in her stony heart, not of fear, but of foreboding. Someone was coming. Someone who would not understand the sacred pact between mountain and sea. Someone who would see strength and think of domination. She did not yet know his name, but the wind already whispered with fear, Heracles. Chapter 2, The Giant Who Touched the Sky with His Feet on the Earth. Feel the warmth of the sand of the strait beneath the bare feet of a man whose shadow covers 3 olive trees. Hear the deep laughter of Antaeus, not of arrogance, but of fulfillment, echoing in the valleys like gentle thunder. See his eyes, green as the sea in calm times, fixed on the mountain that seems to breathe before him. Son of Poseidon and Gaia, Antaeus came from the south not as a conqueror, but as one who seeks roots. He knew his secret: as long as his feet touched the earth, no force could bring him down. Each fall strengthened him, each wound closed with the embrace of the soil. He was invincible, but not indomitable. Upon seeing Tinjis, he felt something new, recognition. In her he saw the perfect union between what he was, sea and mountain, movement and firmness, strange and ancestral. He climbed the slope unarmed, with only an offering, a necklace of Atlantic shells, polished by time. On the highest ridge, she found Tinjis not as a vision, but as a living presence. Her eyes were lakes where the sky was forced to reflect itself. "You did not come to fight," she said, her voice like stone sliding upon stone. "I came to rest," replied Antaeus. "My strength is great, but my soul is weary of being used as a test." She, who for millennia had been only a guardian, saw in him the same as she saw in herself, sacred duality. Mountain and sea are not enemies, they are lovers who meet on the horizon. For moons, Antaeus lived on its slopes, learning the songs of the Amazigh land. And Tinjis, for the first time, felt desire, not the consuming kind, but the creative kind. From the love between giant and mountain was born Iarbas, a boy with shifting eyes, a cedar cradle, and a shell toy who sang. Tinjis nursed him with milk and spring water. Antaeus taught him to fight without hatred, to fall and rise with honor. But peace does not last where empires march. Far away, Heracles was completing his 12 labors, and his path would lead him to the strait, not to honor, but to prove himself. He had heard of Antaeus as a challenge, not as a story. Tinjis felt the change in the wind, the restless sea, the eagles gone for 3 days. "Someone is coming," he warned on the last night of the full moon. "Let him come," replied Antaeus, kissing Iarbas. "My strength is in the earth, and this earth is yours." But Tinjis knew the cruelest truth: whoever does not understand the pact between mountain and sea does not see strength, he sees weakness. And where he sees weakness, he brings an end. Chapter 3, The Ground That Cannot Be Raised. Smell the salt and sweat in the air, not the smell of the sea, but of human effort pushed to its limits. Hear the heavy footsteps of Heracles climbing the slope, each like a hammer on living stone. See his eyes, not of admiration, but of calculation. He does not see a sacred mountain, called Tinjis, that listens and breathes, he sees only a battlefield. Heracles came in the name of Eurystheus, of glory, and of the Greek logic that measures gods by the size of their victories. Antaeus awaits him on the plateau where the desert wind kisses the breath of the ocean. He brings no weapons, only his arms, his earth, and the ancestral certainty. As long as he touches the ground, he will not die. I am the son of the earth, he says. And she always raises me when I fall. The fight begins with a roar that shakes the roots of the olive trees. Heracles strikes, Antaeus falls, and rises stronger, as if the mountain itself were pushing him back to life. 3 times. 7 times. 12 times. Each fall is an embrace, each rise, a song. But Heracles is more than strength, he is cunning. On the 13th fall, he doesn't allow Antaeus to touch the ground. He lifts him in his arms, suspending him in the air. Antaeus struggles, stretches his fingers, cries out, but the ground is out of reach. Without it, his strength drains away like water on hot sand. Tinjis sees everything from above. His eyes, once serene lakes, burn. His body trembles. But he doesn't intervene, because he knows that no mountain can prevent the sky from closing in an embrace, nor can the earth reach one who has been lifted beyond its dominion. Antaeus dies in Heracles' arms not as a monster, but as a man who loved his roots too much. And when his inert body touches the slope, Tinjis weeps, not with human tears, but with springs. Water gushes forth where he rests. The sea, in mourning, recedes for 3 days. Heracles descends victorious, without looking back. The official history, written by foreigners, will record only, Heracles defeated Antaeus in the 12th labor. No one will ask what the mountain lost. But Tinjis remains, with Iarbas in her arms, the boy who does not understand death, but feels the earth tremble. She whispers to the wind, in the Amazigh language that the Greeks never learned, whoever lifts a man from the earth, kills 2, the man, and the soil that loved him. Chapter 4, The Lament That Became the Law of the Land. Feel the dampness on the rocks at dawn, not dew, but the sweat of a pain that doesn't dry. Hear the wind enter the valleys of Jebel Musa with a longer, deeper tone, like a wordless chant. See little Iarbas kneeling at the edge of a newly formed spring, touching the water with his fingers, as if trying to recover his father's face. Tinjis didn't bury Antaeus, she didn't need to. His body was absorbed by the mountain like a seed, and from it sprouted trees with stronger roots, stones with human warmth, and nocturnal laughter in the wind. But the loss left a mark beyond longing. Tinjis, once guardian, became sworn in. Now she speaks not with a voice of stone, but with silence. From now on, every foreigner who climbs the mountain without asking permission, with arrogance, greed, or a mind full of boundaries, will feel the ground become treacherous, their eyes become confused, their heart race without cause. It's not a curse, it's a memory. Because Tinjis understood, the outside world doesn't see the earth as a mother, but as a resource. It doesn't see the mountain as a goddess, but as an obstacle. Among the Amazigh, its name ceases to be mere myth and becomes living ethics. The mothers teach, never climb Tinjis without saying Arak, permission, in Tamazight. The elders repeat, he who respects the mountain never loses his way home. Shepherds leave offerings not out of fear, but out of alliance, milk, barley, honest silence. And Iarbas grows in this space between mourning and strength, not as an orphan of a giant, but as a son of the alliance between sea and mountain. His eyes change with time, his feet know the name of every stone. At 12 years old, he asks, why didn't Heracles understand? Tinjis takes him to the crest of the battle and answers, because he believed that strength is what one carries. But true strength is what one allows oneself to be touched. Iarbas keeps the phrase like a seed. Years pass. The boy becomes a warrior, the warrior becomes a leader. When Phoenician sailors arrive on the shores of North Africa, bringing fabrics, metals, and stories of a queen named Dido, it is Iarbas who receives them, firm as a mountain, but open as the horizon. He offers land, but with one condition, you may stay, but you will never forget that this land already had a name before you arrived. It is said that Dido, upon hearing this, touched the ground and wept, not out of fear, but out of reverence. And that night, the Phoenicians threw coins into the sea not as an offering to Poseidon, but in homage to the goddess no one had told them about, but whose presence everyone, at last, felt. Chapter 5, The Root That Cannot Be Uprooted. Smell the scent of wet earth after the first autumn rain, not just any rain, but the amgul, which the Amazigh say washes away memory. Hear the sound of Phoenician tents being erected by the sea, creaking wood, stretching ropes, voices in a foreign tongue, but careful gestures as they touch the ground. See Iarbas walk among the newcomers, not as king, but as guardian, with the eyes of his mother and the steps of his father. Carthage still has no walls, it is only a promise made between peoples. Dido, the exiled queen, brought pain, but also wisdom. She knew that one does not found a city on land that already has a soul without asking permission. Therefore, upon disembarking, she did not drive in stakes, she sat in silence and waited. And Tinjis answered, a spring gushed forth where her tear fell, a raven landed on the highest rock and did not fly away, the wind changed direction as if clearing a path. Iarbas smiled. His mother didn't accept everyone, but she recognized those who saw the land as alive. Under her agreement, the Phoenicians could build, but not destroy, trade, but not exploit, pray to their gods, but never mock the mountain spirits. In return, Tinjis granted what no treaty can buy, stability. The harvests were good, the herds strong, the nights safe. But the world doesn't leave alliances in peace. Rumors arrive from the east, Rome grows, Greece observes, empires treat the land as a game board. And with them comes a threat more silent than swords, oblivion. Young Carthaginians, born in the city of stone and salt, begin to ridicule the stories of the mountain goddess. Who is Tinjis? Asks a boy. On the mountain, she feels the blow, sharper than the spear of Heracles. Because it is not invasion that kills memory, it is indifference. She does not rage. She withdraws. The springs diminish, the eagles fly higher, the wind ceases to sing at night. Iarbas, now old, climbs the slope for the last time. White hair mingles with the mist, his weary body bends like the trunks of olive trees. Mother, he whispers, they are forgetting. Tinjis does not answer with words. She pushes away a cloud with her stone hand and shows him the sea. A Phoenician ship leaves offerings, silver coins fall into the dark water, not out of custom, but out of memory that still endures. Not all, she says, with a voice of subterranean roots. As long as there is one who remembers, I exist. Iarbas lies down on the earth where he was born. His last breath mingles with the wind that descends from the Atlas Mountains. The following morning, shepherds find his body wrapped in cedar leaves, not decomposed, but at peace. And at that very hour, a new spring gushes forth at the foot of the mountain, sweet, clear, eternal water. But in Carthage, no one notices, they are busy with coins, walls, and world maps. Only the old men, in the Berber villages, whisper at nightfall, Tinjis is still there. She waits. Without haste. Because the mountains know, forgetfulness is fleeting, but the earth is forever. Chapter 6, The Coins the Sea Returned. Feel the salt in the air not as a breeze, but as a lament, thin, persistent, laden with stories the sea keeps but doesn't tell. Hear the metallic clinking beneath the waves, where Phoenician coins have rested for centuries, enveloped in seaweed and silence. See an Amazigh fisherman, grandson of shepherds, pull in his net and find, among fish and shells, a silver coin with a face he doesn't recognize, but whose weight seems familiar. He doesn't sell it, he doesn't keep it. He returns to the seashore, kneels on the damp sand, and returns it to the waters. It's hers, he says, with the simplicity of someone repeating a gesture learned before words. Because, even without knowing the name Tinjis, his people never forgot the pact. While Carthage minted coins and built empires, the Amazigh kept tradition alive not in writing, but in deeds. Never uproot a plant without asking, never climb a mountain without offering, never sail through the strait without throwing something into the sea, not out of superstition, but out of gratitude. This practice, labeled by the Romans as primitive belief, was, in fact, ritual resistance, each gesture, an act of memory against erasure. But the Roman Empire does not tolerate gods who do not bend. After the fall of Carthage, legions advanced through the Maghreb, imposing Latin names, erecting temples to Jupiter and Saturn, renaming mountains in honor of dead generals. Tinjis, however, has no statue, no marble altar, it cannot be captured in stone. When the Romans try to erect a column with the name of Augustus on Jebel Musa, the wind knocks the stone down 3 times. On the 4th, they retreat, seized by a fear they cannot name. There is something in this mountain, murmurs a centurion. She doesn't accept masters, replies an Amazigh slave, gazing at the sea. Tinjis doesn't fight, it only resists. While Latin dominates the cities, in remote villages grandmothers sing, Tinjis Ura, Tin Ura, Tinjis Cries, the land cries. Even the first Christian missionaries, upon arriving, sensed that this land already had an owner, and, instead of fighting her, they incorporated her into new names, Virgin of the Mountains, Queen of the Atlas. But in the valleys invisible to power, the Amazigh continue to call her by her true name. Today, tourists visit Jebel Musa to take photos and buy souvenirs, calling the mountain Mount Musa, or Pillars of Hercules. But the shepherds still leave milk on the slopes, the fishermen, coins in the sea. Because they know, as long as there is a gesture of respect, Tinjis will not die. And so it has survived, until now. A new threat approaches, not of swords, but of digital silence, not of conquerors, but of rootless cities, of young people who ask, who is Tinjis? Isn't it just a legend? And the mountain, for the first time in millennia, doubts. Because the greatest danger is not being denied, it is being forgotten even by those who still walk upon its body. Chapter 7, The Mountain's Doubt. Feel the hum of electrical wires cutting through the sky where only eagles once flew. Hear the engine of a car climbing the paved road that winds through Jebel Musa, not with reverence, but with haste. See a young Amazigh man, in jeans and headphones, stop at the viewpoint, take a selfie, and move on, without looking back. Tinjis feels it. Not with anger, but with pain. For the first time in thousands of years, it is not challenged by invaders, it is ignored. Empires tried to erase it with foreign temples and failed. Islam came and, even transforming rites, maintained respect for the sacred land. But now the danger has no face, it is the emptiness of, this is useless, the disdain of, it's just stone. In the village school, a teacher states that before Carthage it was empty land, and the mountain trembles. As if centuries of voices, offerings, springs, and pacts could be erased by a convenient lie. That night, she withdraws her embrace, the springs dry up, the wind falls silent, even the goats refuse the pasture. An elder named Musa feels the absence in his bones. He climbs the mountain barefoot, not with an offering, but with a question, Tinjis, are you still there? The silence that answers is not one of abandonment, but of waiting. Seated on the ancestral stone, Musa recounts everything he remembers, his grandmother's teachings, his father's secrets, the gestures of respect he taught his children. His voice falters as he confesses that his grandchildren no longer believe him, they say it's a story for old people. But then something changes, a spiraling breeze dances around him, an eagle cries out 3 times, and where his tears fall, the tasdate sprouts, a red flower that only grows where the land is remembered with truth. Tinjis does not speak, but he answers. He understands, finally, that memory doesn't live only on gestures, but on voices that tell stories. That week, Musa gathers the young people not to preach, but to narrate. I won't say Tinjis is a goddess, he says in the shade of a centuries-old olive tree. I'll say she's the reason this land still bears fruit when others have become desert. She is the name of respect, of silence before speaking, of asking before harvesting, of the reminder that we are children, not owners. The young man taking the selfie listens, and, for the first time, sees the mountain not as a backdrop, but as a presence. That night, he climbs alone, without a cell phone, with a piece of bread, a little milk, and a heart that asks, can I stay? The wind sighs in response, and the springs begin to return. But the world doesn't stop. Soon, machines will come, not to conquer, but to develop. And Tinjis will have to decide, to remain invisible, or to reveal itself in a way that even the skeptics cannot deny. Chapter 8, The Mountain That Rose Without Lifting a Finger. Smell the diesel and dust, not from the living earth, but from the machine that gnaws at the hillside like a voracious insect. Hear the metallic noise of excavators drilling into the sacred soil, programmed to open tourist roads. Watch engineers unfold maps, point out levels, and laugh at local superstitions. It's just rock, says the foreman. Nothing of archaeological value. Let's move forward. But the earth disagrees. On the first night, the engines stop, not from a defect, but from refusal. Batteries discharge on their own, tracks get stuck on invisible routes on the maps, and GPS displays impossible coordinates, as if the mountain had shifted. The workers, men of the countryside, refuse to return, citing the warnings of their grandfathers and dreams of waters that wash away. The project is suspended, not by official decree, but by a collective fear that no technology can silence. The government, however, insists. He brings in specialists from Rabat, conducts geological tests, and declares, there is no risk. It's just superstition. But on the day the excavator advances along the ridge where Antaeus rested, the earth responds, not with destruction, but with life. From the ground cracked by the machine sprout hundreds of tasdate, the red flower that only grows where memory is invoked with truth. In the fissures, fresh water gushes forth, like in ancient springs. The roots of the olive trees intertwine like hands forming a barrier. Even the scientists fall silent, the sensors register the impossible, the water table has risen, humidity has increased, biodiversity has exploded with butterflies, birds, and rare insects. The wounded mountain responds with fertility, not with vengeance, affirming, I am not a resource. I am a source. Musa and the elders do not celebrate, they only whisper, she remembered herself. But the true miracle happens in Yusef, the young man who one day took a selfie without seeing. Now 19, he climbs the mountain daily, not to document, but to care. He removes plastics, marks trails with stones, teaches others to recognize medicinal plants. In a dream, he sees a woman of stone with spring-like eyes who shows him a root holding up an entire mountain. She chose you, says Musa, moved. Not as a priest. As a witness. Tinjis knows that times have changed, there is no longer a need for giants or heroes. A young person who remembers, and teaches another to remember, is enough. Still, the battle is not against bulldozers, but against the forgetfulness that dwells even within the Amazigh themselves. And soon, the moment will come when Tinjis will have to decide, to continue as a whisper, or to become a voice. Because the times no longer demand only resistance. They demand rebirth. Chapter 9, The Voice of the Singing Stones. Feel the silence before the song, not empty, but charged, like the air before thunder. Hear the first sound that comes not from the wind nor the sea, but from the rocks themselves, a low, almost inaudible hum, as if the mountain were tuning its throat. See Yusef stop in the middle of the trail, his bare feet on a smooth stone, and hear, really hear, what no one else can. She is speaking, he whispers, unaware that he is repeating the words of Yarbas millennia ago. Tinjis does not speak in Tamazight, Arabic, French, or Latin. She speaks in the language of the earth, in the cracks that form natural runes, in the springs that change rhythm with the moon, in the roots that draw maps beneath the soil. But now, out of necessity, it becomes audible. On full moon nights, shepherds hear an ancestral song, not with their ears, but with their hearts, and awaken with a profound certainty, this land is not mine. I am hers. Ironically, social media spreads his call. A video of Yusef recording the hum of the mountain goes viral. Scientists arrive, skeptics scoff. But even the most incredulous, upon climbing Jebel Musa, feel something, a pressure in their eyes, a weight in their hearts, an intimate voice that asks, "Did you come to take, or to belong?" Musa is not surprised. She is revealing herself, he tells the elders, because the world has forgotten that the earth has memory. And those with Amazigh blood in their hearts listen, and respond. Young people from distant cities come on silent pilgrimages, not with flags or speeches, but with bread, milk, and sincere questions, how to ask permission from the mountain, how to recognize a sacred spring, who Tinjis really was. Yusef guides them like a brother, teaching that respect is not an empty ritual, but continuous attention, watching where you step, listening to the silence, giving thanks even when no one sees. Thus, the name Tinjis is once again pronounced, not as folklore, but as a principle of life. Even environmental activists around the world are beginning to cite it as a symbol of sacred ecology, the ancestral wisdom of seeing the earth as mother. But Tinjis does not seek fame, she seeks continuity. Therefore, on a cloudless night, she reveals herself to Yusef definitively, not as a woman or a mountain, but as a total presence, the wind in her hair, the water in her eyes, the stone in her footsteps. "Did you call me?" he asks. "No," she replies, with the voice of 1,000 generations. "You heard me." And she gives him what no hero has ever had, not a sword, not a throne, but a seed from the oldest tree in Jebel Musa. Plant it where the world has forgotten. And say, this land has a name. But time is running out. The development plans have only been paused. And the outside world still doesn't understand that some mountains don't exist to be used, they exist to be remembered. And if they forget again, Tinjis will have to choose between eternal silence, or the lament that shakes empires. Chapter 10, She Doesn't Die. She waits. Feel the weight of the seed in Yusef's palm, not dry wood, but dormant life, warm as a promise. Hear the mountain's last song before dawn, not sad, not triumphant, but firm, like a root that deepens. See the horizon where the sea kisses the land, exactly as on the first day, as if nothing had changed, and everything was about to begin again. Tinjis doesn't need to win. She persists. Her myth was never about power, but about presence, never about conquering the world, but about not being erased by it. While empires fall, languages transform, and cities turn to dust, she remains, not like a statue in a museum, but like the smell of wet earth, the taste of spring water, the silence that precedes the right decision. Today, the seed that Yusef plants is not just a tree. It is an act of living memory. It is a no to the colonial myth of the empty land, and a yes to ancestral belonging. And where it springs forth, in Amazigh schools, in the poems of the young, in renewed rituals, something rare in the modern world is born. Sacredness without dogma, identity without hatred, resistance without weapons. Because Tinjis teaches that true sovereignty lies not in dominating the land, but in allowing oneself to be guided by it. The world will still try to measure, explore, and name what cannot be possessed, but the Amazigh know, as long as there is a shepherd leaving milk on the hillside, a young person climbing in silence, a grandmother singing Tinjis Yura to lull her grandchild, it lives. Not as a distant goddess, but as the very soul of the place. And on full moon nights, when the wind blows from the Atlas Mountains towards the sea, those who have ears to hear will not only hear the lament of an ancient loss. They will hear a gentle, ancestral, unwavering invitation. Return. Remember. Belong. This story comes from the Berber, Amazigh, tradition of North Africa, preserved orally for generations in the Atlas Valley and along the shores of the Mediterranean. If it touched you, comment, what ancestral lesson do you take from it?